if you feel you're not good at something, look at what you believe is good and try to understand what they did and try to do it, you know? Even if it means copying, just copy that person, doesn't matter. Once you know how to do it, you do your own version of it. And from there, you'll really learn a lot of tips and tricks on how to get to those results that you love.
Welcome to the Golden Hour Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Mays, and today we speak with Pierre T. Lambert. Pierre comes from a completely different world. Well, not a different world, but a completely different country. Pierre was born and raised in Paris, France. Yes, the Paris, France. Now, Pierre comes from a background of engineering, but he's recently built a huge following on YouTube and Instagram as a filmmaker and photographer. I think if you're somebody who's starting a business as a photographer or somebody who is wanting to do YouTube full time, this interview will be helpful to you. Without any further ado, let's listen to my interview with Pierre. All right, so we're here with Pierre T. Lambert, and your photos are ugly.
Thanks, man.
Tell me about that. You posted a video recently called Your Photos Are Ugly.
Yeah.
What's that about?
Well, I strongly believe that art is super subjective, and anyone that tells me they don't like my photos, it doesn't affect me as much as it used to. You know, when I was starting, I was like, oh, why you don't think they're good? Now I'm like, well, I don't care if you think they're bad. If I think they're good, that's all that matters. Now, if my client think they're good, that's also the second thing that matters. And I was trying to get that message through a lot of people because so many people send us, and maybe it's the same for you, like send us questions. Hey, can you look at my profile? Can you look at my photo? Can you tell me what I'm doing right or what is nice about my photos? Yeah. And I feel like most people just want reassurance, you know, and they're not really looking for criticism. They're just looking for, yeah, just tell me you like. I mean, some people even just ask you, can you like my photo? I'm like, that's a lot to ask to like your photo, but I can tap a button if you want. So yeah, I just thought that message is very important, and it's something maybe we don't speak enough about. We love to speak about gear, obviously.
Yeah, totally.
But loving your art and loving what you create, I think, is very important.
So you're saying like kind of create the stuff that you're creating for yourself rather than for the affirmation of other people.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, social media is amazing, but it also uniformizes, in my opinion, a lot of styles. Like what? It depends, but you know, depending on the category you're going to look at, if you look at travel couples, if you look at landscape photographers, or if you look at lifestyle photographers, the big influencers have a huge impact that they didn't have before. Before it would be through magazines or whatever. Nowadays, if someone like Chris Burka or if someone like Jacob posts a picture of a place,
Chris Burgard? You mean?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, yeah.
We interviewed him yesterday.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
But anyways.
Yeah, it has a huge impact on the whole ecosystem, and everyone tried to emulate at one point. And a lot of people also chase photos just because they get more engagement on those photos, and everyone's guilty of it. That's in a way that's our flaw. But I like to remind myself not to go for that and just go for what you love. And personally, you know, it doesn't matter if everyone loves it or not.
Yeah, but if nobody likes it, then you won't make any money.
Then that's a career choice. You keep it as a hobby, you know. Most of the people who ask me are actually
you're right,
as hobbyists. The pros don't usually have time to ask, hey, what do you think of my photo? No, it's more like, hey dude, can you share how you're shooting that versus how is my photo? And I think that's a big shift, and that's how I see things. If you take an amazing photo, and I'm super, not jealous, but I'm super like, wow, I love that photo, I want to try to do something like that, I'm going to ask you how and what stuff I don't understand about your photo that you did that can help me get the same result. I'm not going to ask you like, hey, what do you think of that one with my dog? Yeah. Is it good?
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, I see where you're coming from.
But, I mean, if it makes people happy,
yeah, exactly.
It's cool.
Exactly. I have this new camera, this Olympus camera. It's Micro Four Thirds. We were just talking about how you went to full frame and it's hard to go back. But I like it. I like the Micro Four Thirds, and it might be bad in low light and the depth of field's not as good, but I like it, so who cares, right?
Exactly. So that's the most important.
Yeah. So let's talk about your background.
Sure.
It sounds like you have an accent. You're from Texas? Or
Yeah, Paris, Texas.
No, you're from France.
Yeah, France.
Born and raised.
Yeah.
What part of France? For anybody that might know.
I'm from around Paris, actually, so
cool.
just a little bit south of Paris.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's a small city. It's tiny, actually. It has a big tower over there, like a big oil rig.
Yeah.
So that's similar to Texas, you know.
Okay. Yeah.
And and no, yeah. So Paris, but I lived a very long time also in Germany. So,
Nice. And you met your wife out there as well, right?
Absolutely not. I met her in Africa.
Oh, okay. I thought you said that you met her there because she went there to school. Or
Oh no,
something,
that
or-
was after I met her.
Okay.
So
cool.
yeah.
So
I
you
met her in Nigeria.
Wow, that's
actually.
awesome.
Yeah, that's was during my previous life when I was a cat. And
A cat?
No, I'm joking. I used to work as an engineer, and I was
Okay.
in oil and gas at one point, and I was sent out to Nigeria
Okay.
because I love traveling, so I would take anything that would get me to travel.
Cool.
And I ended up in Nigeria for a year and a half, and just before I left, I met her. She was on a mission also over there,
Nice.
like on a special project.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm like, oh, hey. And that's how it started. Yeah.
That's awesome. How long have you been married now?
About, what is that? 3-4 years. Yeah.
Cool.
And
That's
we
awesome.
met 7 years ago, something like that.
Wow. I've been to Nairobi in Kenya and Masai Mara and all that.
Oh, really? Cool. How
Have
did
you-
you like it?
It's beautiful. It's a whole
Yeah.
nother world out there. I mean, the people are different. The landscape is different. The animals are different. I mean, there's giraffe just like walking around, just on the side of the road. It's not a zoo. It's like real.
Did you feel like when you came back here, you were living in a different
Yeah.
universe?
It gave me perspective.
Yeah.
I think that people who are born into Western civilization, yourself included,
Yeah.
probably just are used to the normal things like going to the grocery store and using our cell phones and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But when you go to a place, we went to some really impoverished areas, and you see people who literally live in a house that they built out of straw and mud.
Yeah.
It really gives you perspective. But I will say this, they were some of the happiest, most joyful people I've ever met. Even though they were poor,
Yeah.
they didn't really know any better, I guess is the best way to say it. And they were just happy that we were there helping, and very happy, loving people. So as long as their needs are met with their cattle and their water,
Yeah.
and there's no sickness, they're very sweet, amazing people. So I don't know, it was a huge experience. I've been twice, so
Oh, cool.
yeah.
That's something I found very important when I travel. Is sometimes you go in luxury mode, which is fine. And I highly encourage to anyone listening, go in luxury mode if you want, or because your wife wants to.
Are you talking
But-
about like a vacation?
Yeah,
resort?
wherever you're traveling. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Something more organized and like cleaned for Westerners.
Mhm.
But whenever you can, take those 3 days and go local, but just local. You take the local bus, you go with local people, sleep with locals. And last time I was in Indonesia, I remember it was last year, about the same period of time.
Mhm.
And I was on an island called Lombok. It's just next to Bali, where everyone goes. 80% of the people who go to Indonesia just stay in Bali, actually, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Because it's tiny. Indonesia has like more than 7,000 islands. And next door, there is an island called Lombok that was like really broken down, whatever you want to call it, and that was really destroyed by the latest earthquakes.
Mhm.
And then there is a huge island that's called Sumbawa. And after Sumbawa, there is Komodo Flores, where a lot of people go dive, and it's getting very popular now. But people fly usually. So I did it about, say, in 2010. I went locally through that island with a friend. And that was really cool experience because we realized suddenly we left all the tourist spots where everyone's asking you, hey, do you need transport? Do you need something? And we arrive on an island where there's no one's asking you for anything.
Mhm.
Everyone goes do their thing, and suddenly we're here with our bags, and we're like, it's going to be an interesting 800 kilometers to cross the island,
Yeah.
And
Wow.
I decided to go back and do it again this year, just to see. It hasn't really changed. It's still super rural,
Mhm.
and you end up in buses that I don't know. You could see the floor, the road through the bus. The metal was so thin and like used that you could see everything under, and it's like 1,000,000 degrees inside the bus, and no one's complaining, and some people look kind of happy, and you end up in villages where people are happy and they literally have nothing, and it just I like that feeling, not as voyeurism, but to ground myself. And understand that life is not about what you have, but it's what you have inside, not outside.
That's right. Wow, I couldn't agree more. That's awesome. What were some favorite memories that you had growing up of taking photos specifically? Were you a photographer when you were younger in your hometown in France?
I loved taking photos, but I had no clue. I wasn't interested in the technique of it, I would say, technical aspect of it.
So back to your photos were ugly back then and you didn't care?
Yeah, exactly. My photos were
you're doing it
probably
for fun.
Terrible. Yeah, just doing it for fun. You're young and you have a few friends around and you're playing with a film camera at the time.
Yeah.
So I always loved the disposable cameras because I felt like you can take anything, it doesn't matter. But the moment I got a camera where I could put film inside, I was like, ooh, that's getting serious. It's like I was a bit like, ooh.
Do you remember what camera it was back then?
It was black.
It was a black camera?
It was a black camera with a thing that slides at the front to open the lens.
My mom had one of those.
Yeah, that's all I remember about it. I don't even know where it is anymore. But it was, my grandfather gave it to me. But there are two strong memories with the photos like that. One was we had a workshop when I was maybe 6, 7, 8 years old in a dark room, and we literally made photos just by using a lamp and using tools on paper. Wow. It was weird. So, I mean, guys, it looked like nothing. It would look like you would have basically shapes of. How do you call that, of the tools? So it would be white or black, and that's it. But that just taught us the concept of photography, which was, if you hide a part, it's gonna be dark. If you light it, it's gonna be white. And just that was kind of fun to do, and and then I remember using that and playing with it with friends. It was
that's awesome. That's a great way to just cut your teeth learning how to take pictures and understanding the science of it too.
Yeah, I mean, we did our own thing with the chemicals. We put the photos in it and we saw it appear. This is really fun. I mean, imagine, I still remember.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you does your engineering background, you mentioned that earlier that you were involved in gas and oil and engineering.
Yeah.
Does that come into play now as you're a photographer? Any of the skills that you learned?
So what I was doing as an engineer was project management / supply chain, and how it helped me was more in contracts with clients, understanding that legal is important, having like stuff square, also speaking with clients. Because the contracts I was working on was pretty big, like $30 million.
Wow.
So the way you speak or structure stuff is very important, and it has to be legally you always need to keep it legal, and everything has to be contractual. So I know in when we go freelance mode, we like to do things, you're my friend, let's just do it. But it's also good to go back to contracts and understanding how to structure that discussion. That really helped me. The rest, I think, is just more brain formatting on how you think about problem solving. Yeah, that's where the value is.
Okay.
I'm not using the math so much now.
You worked off the coast of Angola on a construction vessel?
Yeah, Angola.
What was Angola? Sorry. What was that like?
Very boring.
So you're just off in the middle of the ocean?
Yeah. So the gas you're putting in your tank every day comes from different locations. So from the US or from Africa or from even Southeast Asia. But anywhere you go, you have a part of oil that is exploited from inland and one part that is actually offshore. And the part that are offshore, as you might imagine, is like the platforms that you see in movies and stuff like that.
There's some here in California.
Yeah.
Out in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah. So you've got some right here in your background and backyard. Backyard. Thanks. Guys confused.
It's okay. If I knew 2 languages, I would do the same thing. How many languages do you know? Actually?
4, 5.
4. Holy crap.
Yeah. But not, I mean, the rest is the more I know, the less I know, if that makes sense. Like the first one are very strong, and then it goes down.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Anyway, so your platform needs to connect and pump out the oil and give it to the boat to bring it ashore. And for that, you have a ton of pipelines everywhere under sea, and that's what the company was doing. They were installing those pipelines, cables, pipelines, anything. So we'd be out there and would be installing pipelines. And to be honest, it's not that exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like
You're kind of lonely out there.
Yeah.
No internet?
I had internet because I was always talking with the office, so that's good. But I had friends, sometimes they would go off the grid for a week too, and then come back. So, yeah.
Did you take any pictures and photography while you were working back in those days?
Not good photos, no. I would just take a selfie. You know, it's like, hey, look, honey, I'm on a boat in the middle of nowhere. It's actually less exciting than I thought, and I can't go back ashore, if anything.
So what was that switch for you when you went from your career in that field of work to now being a photographer?
The switch was simply realizing that I could do whatever I wanted with my life, which is something I did not have ingrained in me. It was more like, oh, there's a certain path that's good and secure that your family might have worked for you. And I was like, oh, that's great. But when I discovered, like, I don't have to follow that path specifically. I can also try to carve my own thing based on my interest. And that's and that went through a book that I stumbled upon, which was The 4-Hour Workweek from Tim Ferriss.
Yep.
And I remember reading it. I think it was during a night shift or so. I was on the boat, and then I received from my university like one of those newsletter, and then like conference on is the 4-hour work week possible? You know, it was in French, so imagine the translation and the French people trying to argue about that.
Yeah.
Because we only work 35 hours a week. Legally, I mean, you can do a little bit more, but they reduced it. So so I was like, 4. That sounds like very minimalist. And actually, I grabbed the PDF version because I couldn't get any book delivered, obviously. And at the time, I don't think ebooks were that common. And I started reading, and I was like, oh, it's funny. That book feels like it's been written for me in a way, because there are a lot of things in the organization I was in. I felt like it was so inefficient. You know, I would be in an office, some stuff where I just was wondering what I was doing here sometimes certain days. I'm like, I could be here 2 days and do the exact same amount of work that we're doing right now.
Wow.
But that's just the way it was structured. That's just the way it worked. And I was like, okay, why don't I try to focus more on my personal interest and see what I can do with that? And that's where photography came into place. And basically, I scribbled down a bunch of ideas that I wanted to explore. And that's how it got started.
Wow. So what was some of the first jobs that you had with photography, once you kind of got into it a little bit?
Yeah, so the first 2 jobs I got was, the first one was with friends of friends. So I decided I wanted to be good in photography because I was most of the time around Paris. I'm like, okay, our landscape's not going to work out, right? It's going to be a bit difficult right now. But there is a genre I never tried, which was shooting couples, shooting portraits, people. Commercially, it's very viable and it can work out. So as a side gig, I was like, why don't I train on that? So I started training a lot. I would shoot anyone for free. And then one day I told friends who loved their photos, I'm like, can you recommend me friends, of yours? And they're like, yeah, sure. Here's a couple. And then I told that couple, hey guys, it's totally free, but you can pay me whatever you want. Just like the free walking tour. Give me a tip if you like the work. And they did pay me at the end. When they got the photos, they got really excited and they paid me. And I was like, oh, great. That's my first paid gig, let's say. And the other one was with a, B2B. It was with another business, and a friend sent me a recommendation. And he's like, hey, they're looking for a photographer to shoot, a shop. and it was in Brussels. So I sent them a quote.
Like a real estate kind of.
No, it was a clothing brand.
Okay.
It's a clothing brand,
Okay,
like a fashion brand in France, and
Gotcha.
they had a new shop in Brussels, and they needed
see.
someone to shoot the shop. And I was like, sure, when you start, you're like, I'll take anything, you know. And just before I started training on how to shoot interior photography,
Yeah.
I was like, it's okay. I mean, it's photography. It can't be that difficult. So then I started looking into it, really training, got better, and the job came. Send them a quote. That part is kind of funny because I sent them a quote, and I thought I would have to cover all my expenses to get there and everything. It's like 3 hours from my home, and suddenly they can come back. They're like, without even negotiation, they're like, yeah, that works. We'll send you your train ticket tomorrow. I'm
Nice.
like,
A train.
a train ticket? What do you mean? Oh, you're paying for me to go? That's great.
Yeah.
I clearly underpriced, but that's okay. It's my first gig. That's how you learn.
Yeah. Man, I think there's a lot to learn there for somebody who wants to start out. The thing that stands out to me that you mentioned was talking about how you offered to do things for free. I think a lot of people expect to just start working and charge $1,000 or whatever. And,
Yeah.
that's really how you begin. Is you need to gather a portfolio of images, and if you offer to do it for free, people, of course, are much more open to letting you just take pictures of them.
Yeah, that's the most important. Especially, I mean, you can't charge. You don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you do know what you're doing, why are you not charging?
Mhm.
You know, if you're that good, people will ask and pay you. You know, but I felt like I needed to train, and I was actually grateful that those people would take the time for me to train with them, because my first shoot with my wife and one of her friends was terrible, I'm like, oh, thank you so much for being patient for an hour and a half with me.
Yeah.
It's really good. I was excited by the photos at the time, and I look at them, I kind of cringe. And that is a fun evolution, of your subjectivity around your own art. But yeah, I think it's just so essential, you know. And I even when I was getting paid a year or two later, when I was getting paid, one day I got contacted by people for the fashion week in Paris, and they're like, can you shoot backstage photos for one of our shoots we're doing with that famous designer? I'm like, okay, I don't know anyone in the space, but I'm like, how does it work? How does a fashion shoot work? Actually, I had no clue. I'm asking, are you guys paying? They're like, no, we don't pay. I'm like, weighing the pros and cons. I'm like, I'm not gonna get paid. I'm gonna spend 3 hours, but I'm gonna see pro photographers in the fashion industry work, and I'm gonna see exactly how they're doing it. I'm like, that's totally worth it to me. It's
Free
better than a
education.
training. Let's go. And I did it. So
It's a great mindset.
you just have to be humble enough to be like, it's okay. And I know it's very easy to get caught up in, I should always get paid.
Yeah.
What about you?
What?
Do you shoot for free?
I'm
Can
not
I
a
hire you
photographer.
for free?
I'm not a photographer. I'm a filmmaker, cinematographer. That's my background.
But I mean, you're still shooting, no?
No,
No?
just YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's shooting, no?
Yeah,
I mean, it's pretty intense.
I
no?
don't do anything for free anymore. No.
Okay.
Other than, if I will serve people that I believe in. For example, I have a friend of mine who's basically a missionary.
Yeah.
And he does really amazing work, and he'll pay to fly me to a different country.
Got it.
And pay for my expenses, but he doesn't actually pay me a rate, and
Yeah.
I'll kind of donate my time because I really respect what he's doing and want to kind of serve. I think that's important.
I love what you're saying, because that's something so I'm going to a project in Polynesia right now, and one part of it is going to be working with a non-for-profit, but I'm not gonna do it for profit either. I'm not being paid. I'm just very excited to go and share the story. And it got me to reflect on exactly what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a skill, if you're doing anything, you don't have to volunteer or give away money. You can just give away your time, spend a few hours, and shoot for whatever non-for-profit you're believing in.
I was a little convicted by that thing that you just said, because sometimes I feel like when I'm doing mission type work and I see people building houses or whatever, and I'm filming, kind of feel bad, like, oh man, I should be in the dirt,
Yeah.
But the truth is the skills that I have are different from other people.
Mm-hmm.
And these people are able to help build the house, but they might not be able to do the video that I'm doing. So the value that I'm bringing with the video, with my skill set, is unique, and you know, that's my way to donate my time. It's actually more valuable for me to donate that skill than my hands to build a house. But sometimes it's also good for us to put the camera down and get dirty and actually do something physical like that. But I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying, and I had that huge question when there is this beautiful movie called Harrison Flowers. It's a war photographer during the 90s who is sent to, what do you call that area? Yugoslavia, when it was like when all hells were breaking loose over there, and there was like the civil war and the war between Serbia, Croatia, everyone. And it's about that coverage. And I always thought, how do you not get involved as a war photographer? You know, how can you pass all those people and just capture and not help them? And they touched a little bit on that subject inside the movie, but I remember thinking about it, and I was like, oh, that must be so difficult. And that's exactly what you're saying on a different scale, where you're shooting people rebuilding something, you know, and contributing to something, but you can't be on both sides. You know, it's just not possible. And you're not, and you have a place, in my opinion. You have something, you're meant to be here, and it's not that. You know,
you're right.
There is another girl or another guy just like you who came just for that. You know, so do what you do best. In a way. Or
if you want to go outside of that to kind of escape from your daily stuff, then intentionally go to build or whatever. So you've lived in a lot of countries. How many countries have you actually lived in? You said that when you're there for 3 months, not even countries, but just even cities in America, you said that you hop around a lot. Tell me about that. How many places have you lived?
So I lived...
you just start listing them off. You don't have to count them.
Really? Okay. UK, France, Germany, Italy a little bit. Where else? New York, Chicago, and then the rest was mainly travel. Not too long term, but like
a month or something.
Months, for example. Yeah, I have about 45 countries or 50 now.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
The list starts to add up,
And what gave you that urge to do that? Have you just always wanted to travel?
Yeah, I think it's documentaries. When I was a kid, I loved watching animal documentaries, or, you know, like Planet Earth type of documentaries. And I was always like amazed by those places on Earth. And with my family, we would travel, you know, on holidays. When you're in Europe, it's easy to get to North Africa or to go to even the mountains, etc. And I always loved that exposure. And when I was 18, after studying Japanese 3 years in high school, I was like, okay, it's time for me. I'm going to go on my own solo trip. And before that, I had been to several countries, but always with family. And when I did my own experience, it felt so good. I was like, there's so much to discover, you know. There's no way I can't close my eyes and go back home and be like, this never happened, you know.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, when you travel, especially with maybe your family, it's fun, but the more people you add to it, the more complicated it gets to travel.
100%.
Especially if you're not with somebody who knows how to travel. You know, you might be with somebody who has to have a clean bathroom all the time, or needs to have air conditioning,
which is a huge luxury, guys.
Those are luxuries, but you know, if you're able to use the bathroom in a hole in the ground and not live with air conditioning, then you can really see the world in a really interesting way. What are some of the places that really stand out to you in your mind? Maybe give me a top 3 or 4 that you really, really love.
Nigeria, for being so far from anything else I've ever seen, imagined, or experienced in my life. Like, it opened my eye on so many things, good and bad. I was like, oh wow, okay, cool. Japan, because it's the Matrix. They're literally living in a century that is ahead of us, and very soon when VR is way more common, they're all gonna disappear in the virtual world. I'm 100% convinced. Love Japan. There is so much of that crazy mix between history and very clean culture and
Technology.
I don't know, and technology. It's
Which
fascinating.
cities in particular in Japan?
Just Tokyo. Just when you arrive in Tokyo, it's strange. It's the Matrix for me. And then there are more like iconic cities like Kyoto that I really like, or if you go in the mountains in Sendai. I love those places. But now I want to explore a bit more the rural areas. We started doing it last year, and that was really...
Your wife travels with you?
Yeah, for a full year. She quit her job, took a sabbatical basically, and we went traveling for a year.
Wow.
And yeah, the rural areas of Japan are so nice and quiet and peaceful. It's literally like in the mangas, if you ever watched animes, when they're in the countryside and you have the little birds and, a very poetic way. It's totally like that.
Wow. Man, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to say because that's just not normal, to travel that much.
Yeah, I guess it's not. But
it's authentic to you. You're not doing it for views or Instagram likes. It's something that if those things didn't exist, I feel you and your wife would still pursue those things.
Oh, yeah. I would totally pursue that. And the reason is because I started way before I ever picked up a camera to film anything.
You've got 65,000 subscribers on your personal YouTube channel, roughly around that amount. You have a travel channel as well?
Yeah.
Is that what you said with your wife? What's that one called?
39 Pierre.
And what's that?
So 26, 27, I think. Something like that.
And then you've got over 20,000 on Insta. So you're looking at, a good 100,000 roughly of people that are following you on Twitter and Instagram, YouTube.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive, pretty amazing. What brought you to YouTube, like in particular? Because that's where I live as a YouTuber doing camera reviews. What brought you to the platform?
YouTube was that thing I didn't know about until that moment when someone was like, "Yeah, we create videos, we make a living on YouTube." I'm like, "What? What is YouTube exactly?" Because the last time I checked YouTube was for Photoshop tutorials,
Yeah.
And that's all. And I had a narrow vision because. Imagine I lived as an engineer, was trained as an engineer in a very structured way. I thought artists were struggling and all dying from hunger, That's kind of my mindset at the time.
And I guess at the time too, there weren't Logan Paul and Jake Paul and like these big YouTubers where now almost every high schooler wants to be a YouTuber. Like that wasn't a thing like 5 years ago.
No, it wasn't a thing. And I used to game a little bit. I used to game quite a bit actually. But I remember watching a few streams, a few streams on YouTube or like tutorials at the beginning. And I was like, oh, that's actually very helpful for whoever is putting it out there on that platform. It's very helpful for me. That's cool. But I didn't think I could use it. I didn't think I could create on that. I was more in my photography world and trying to figure out, just doing it for fun. But when I decided to become a photographer, obviously I stumbled upon Instagram. It was not the beginning, but it was like fairly early. And people are like, you need to be on Instagram if you want to be a photographer. And that was very like 2013 or 12. So 2013, I think. And it wasn't what it is today. And so I got into Instagram. I didn't really know what to do with social media. I didn't have any blueprint at the time on that. And one day when we were back in New York, by the time I had really started to understand all those platforms, because I also built my own platform, which is a booking site for photographers. Because when I started to become a photographer, that's a big problem I faced. I was like, how come I can book a hotel in any tiny village in the world on one platform, but if I'm a photographer, I literally need to rank on Google on first page for people to see me. That I was like, no one's aggregating us and just putting it easily for the client. So I just built a booking.com for photographers basically. And it got me to understand the social sphere a little bit better. And when I got in New York one day, I listened to a podcast, and I think it was a family vlogger that was on the podcast, and then there was another podcast with Casey. And I was like, oh, that's interesting what they're doing. And at the time, I kind of was in a creative block. Personally, I wasn't creating much, and in terms of photography, I was a little bit like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I picked up the camera and decided, why don't I do a 30-day challenge where I'm just gonna film a vlog, whatever that is, every day, you know. And it's a way also to show my family what's around in New York, what I'm up to, or whatever. And that's how I got started with YouTube. I had no clue what I was doing, like literally no clue. I never turned on a camera in rec mode before,
So that's how you started.
Yeah, I just picked up the camera and said, okay, do it for 30 days. And then I kept it for 6 months.
So what, like, did it work?
No, totally not. It was in a way, it was...
that was 2014, 15, or...
16, 2006.
That would have been the height of kind of Casey Neistat's
completely his height,
time.
Yeah. And I was in New York at the time, so I was like, oh, that's interesting what he's doing.
Did you see him or meet him?
No, never. But
do you want to meet him?
I wouldn't mind. Yeah, I mean, he's cool. I'd like to say thanks for doing what you're doing, because it's cool. I think he's inspiring a lot of people, or influencing at least, if not just inspiring. And I think that's great.
But it didn't work. You didn't get millions of views and tons of subscribers.
No, I had videos with 17 views, and I was like, wow, that's not me 17 times though.
Well. Fast forward to 2019 and you're not getting 17 views. You're getting 17,000 or more views sometimes. What changed? What was that moment where you switched over and you had a blueprint and a plan for your YouTube channel?
Awareness of what you're doing, I think, is key, and understanding also
niche.
Understand niche and understanding that you're literally putting stuff on a platform that anyone can see and find, but no one will see and no one will find it unless they search for it or someone puts them in front of them. And that someone is the platform, right?
Yep.
Facebook, YouTube, whoever you want to call them, whatever you want to call them. And once I understood that, I had to make a choice, because I had been doing that for 6 months, and it was fun because I created a lot of memories, and for me that's very enjoyable, you know. It's it's personal project. That was just a personal project. I was pursuing my professional things on the side.
Your photos suck.
Yeah, exactly. My videos sucked so bad.
Your photos are ugly. That's what it was.
There we go. So my videos were ugly, guys. Like really bad. I was cringing. I saw one today.
But it was like a family video. It was a documentation.
Exactly. In 2008 on YouTube, that would have picked up. Totally. I'm sure.
Yeah,
because
you're right.
No one else, you know. But I looked at it and I was like, okay, I'm spending a few hours now on it. I have to make a decision, you know. It's like a business. Okay, I'm spending time on that. It's not going anywhere. So either I keep it every blue moon just for fun, or if I want to ramp it up a little bit and try to do something better, I need to change things, because whatever I'm doing is clearly not the way to do it. So I just thought about it, and I pushed a little bit towards travel, and I started making more information-based content, even on the travel side, and that clearly literally picked up instantly. Not instantly, but that picked up really much faster. And those videos would get a lot more views, and that's how I made my own experience of, okay, you have to provide value, you know, like people just want to learn stuff just like I did in the past.
And it was also something that you were authentic about, because travel is something that is really true to who you are. And it's easy to talk about that for you, I'm sure.
It is easy, and it's also, whenever you're going somewhere, you don't realize that there are a lot of good information you can give to people that have never been there and are a little bit scared of going a place, or they just have like a lot of questions. And if you're able to help them answer that, that's cool. Now, I had to understand also that no one cares what you do. No one cares what you're putting out on YouTube. Like literally no one cares. If I die tomorrow, that's it, you know. Oh, okay, cool. Maybe there will be a few comments. Hey, have you seen his new video? No. Where is it? That's it, you know. Except my close family, no one gives a damn usually.
Well, I would.
Oh, thanks. That's nice. You don't have to pretend. At least have a good beer for me.
Yeah.
So that's something that I see friends also do the same, where we think just because Casey puts his life and people are interested doesn't mean because you put yours, people are going to get interested. And it's a big thing, at the time.
People make vlogs for no reason and nobody cares, and nobody watches them because they're not famous and nobody cares.
Exactly.
And we're a little behind you. We're at about 55,000 subscribers, and I'm just now at a point where I'm thinking about starting vlogs because I now have an audience who kind of cares, you know, about what I'm doing. But if I started it 3 years ago, like, nobody gives a crap.
I have videos with 17 views. I'm being dead serious.
Yeah.
They're not visible, but they're still there. And that's the thing. I just wish everyone could understand. If you're ever trying to start anything in the social sphere, you have to bring more value than whatever else is around, and that's something I learned a lot also after that got validated by Gary. Whenever I discovered Gary Vaynerchuk, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense, because whatever you're saying clearly, from my experience, clearly has proven correct. So it's, I don't know, it's just thinking that I failed for so long on something just makes me laugh sometimes.
Well, it's all, a learning experience, and if you zoom out on your life and you look at, how old are you?
30. Yeah, 30.
30-ish.
Yeah.
So like, if you zoom out, I forget too.
Wait,
I'm 20.
31?
I'm 28.
Oh yeah, I'm 31.
What year were you born?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're 31.
87.
Oh, yeah. 31. So if you zoom out on your life, God willing, you'll live to be at least in your 80s or 90s.
Yeah,
Lord
or
willing.
like 160.
Yeah, 160. I mean, you still have so much career left, and those little moments of struggle where you weren't doing well, those are so small compared to the next decade, 2 decades, 3 decades of your career.
Yeah, and just think that the Second World War lasted from 1939 until 1945.
Wow. Yeah.
That's 6 years. My YouTube journey is not even like, it's barely 2.5 years now, or like almost not even 3 years.
Yeah.
Which is nothing. When I think about it like that, like you said, oh, that guy stayed in the camp for freaking 3 years and or in prison for 25 years. I'm like, yeah, it's okay. I can fail for another 6 months. That's cool.
It went real dark real quick.
I think this darkness also shines a much brighter light on the rest of your life, and I think it's good to ground yourself.
So because the other half of my life is YouTube, I like to ask other YouTubers about their process because I'm just nerdy and curious. What does your process look like when you're coming up with a video? Maybe you have an app that you use to organize your thoughts, and then do you script things out? Do you just kind of improvise it? What's your process like when you come up with a concept and the execution?
Can I ask you a question first?
Yeah. How do I do it?
No. When does the idea come to you?
It's just random.
It's random?
Yeah, it's usually random, or if I'm on Twitter and I see a new thing, it'll be like, oh, cool, I want to talk about that because it's a new thing. We are a gear review channel, and we'll get on that later because I know you have strong feelings about gear.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, but yeah, it's just random. Sometimes in the shower, oftentimes at midnight when I'm laying in bed and I wake up and then I open up my phone and it wakes up my wife. She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm just writing down an idea. And she's like, will you stop working? And I'm like, I'm just, sorry, I'm an entrepreneur.
Sorry, I'm a genius.
She's like, yeah, exactly. I married a beautiful, amazing woman who is really the opposite from me in terms of her mindset with work. And it really keeps me grounded, and it's a great balance.
Oh, that's awesome.
But it's hard for her to understand, like, at midnight, sometimes I'll be thinking about work instead of sleeping.
Yeah, that's, I know those moments.
Yeah. But what about you? How do you...
So my process is every now and then, not as often as I would like to, I will sit down and take a piece of paper or just open, like, I use OneNote mainly just because it goes across platforms. And I just write as many ideas pop up in my mind. I'll put some
Nice.
good music and just try to find ideas. Always trying to think back to whatever I learned that really changed something in my work or in my life, and what kind of value can I get to. And I just write down those ideas, and then I usually
On paper?
on paper or on the app, depends.
Okay. Some people are very like romantic with the pen to paper, you know.
Yeah, I think it's very
It's different, isn't it?
it's different. It's different, and there's no way you're gonna get distracted by anything else. Like not even the brightness of your paper.
It's right.
It's
Yeah.
like pen paper. How bad can it be? You know,
Yeah.
you might have to tweak. The pen could stop working, and then
Yeah.
you would fiddle with like 20 pens for an hour.
Yeah.
That's possible, but you're just pushing it then.
Yeah. Do you procrastinate?
Not much.
Yeah.
Not a little bit. Yeah.
I do. I'm a procrastinator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do a little bit. But someone said something to me one day. He's like, "You never finish what you say you will finish." And
To you? They said that to you?
Yeah. And I was like 14. I was like, "What are you talking about?" And I remember it struck with me, and since then I'm like, I'm always gonna do what I say I'm gonna do.
Yeah, that's
just because I
important.
didn't like the feeling of being caught
That's
and
important.
not finishing something. So I'm like, I'm always gonna try to do it.
That's good.
Now you can tell yourself anything, so you can always procrastinate. You know, you
Yeah.
can always find a good excuse in your mind
yeah,
to
yeah.
push something on the side.
I don't know. The
Um,
the cramming part. Those like, okay, this thing needs to be done by tomorrow morning, and it's 10 o'clock at night, and I just crank it out. Like, there's some energy there that happens. I don't know why.
The stress, yeah.
Yeah.
The
stress-
You go in a creative flow, no?
Yeah.
When you do that, yeah.
Mhm.
It's like the urgency pushes you in that flow.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's
It's
the interesting
addictive to
part.
me, for me. I've always liked that adrenaline of like cramming it. You know.
Yeah, that's why I do the photography challenges also with like 10 minutes, just
Oh, that's
because
great.
it pushes me also, because you might spend an hour walking around and doing nothing,
Yeah.
and then you're like, okay, stop messing around. You've
Yeah.
got 10 minutes. You better make stuff happen now.
But anyway, so you write out your ideas, and then what?
Write out the ideas, and when it's time to make a video, or when I'm feeling, because just like you have random ideas coming at random times, I'm gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna make a video on that. Now I'm gonna write the video in the list. I'm gonna start describing the video like super shortly.
Like bullet points.
Yeah, bullet points. Let's say, what is the last video? Airport security and travel. You know, a lot of people were asking me, how can you travel with so much stuff? I was like, great video, let's do it.
So you say pre-check.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
And
what I have.
I don't
love it.
even have it.
You don't? You
No.
need it, dude. Oh, man, it's
I'm
great.
waiting for.
You can get the international.
No,
one.
I need another paperwork from to finish. Yeah,
Because
anyway.
the laws changed now. They like scan your camera bags and everything, take the batteries and drones out. It's annoying.
Yeah, but it's not that bad. So back to the
I
process.
need to watch your video.
Yeah, you need to. I don't get in trouble. Like the US is not the worst for me. Like clearly.
Yeah.
But
Anyways, so you come up with a concept.
come up with the
bullet point
concept,
it.
bullet point. I was like, okay, like 3 parts I think are important in that topic, which is basically TSA. One is airline, and another one is just like how do you pack? Like where would you put your stuff? You know, what goes in your carry-on and what goes in your check-in.
Yeah.
And from that I had to develop a little bit the points, like
Mhm.
writing down like how I want to structure my intro, what interesting stuff I want to share in that video. And that way it's just how do you call that, cheat sheet?
Yeah.
Is that what you call it? Yeah, it's
I
just a
guess.
cheat sheet whenever I'm shooting to go back to it. If I script too much, I lose a little bit of easiness or authenticity, and then I just get stuck
Me
with
too,
with
yeah.
that.
Mhm.
But if I write just points, that helps. And if I'm really stuck and I can't speak, which happens sometimes, I have 25 takes for the single like line. I'm like, oh, all right, let's try it a little bit later. But having a little bit of bullet points, that really helps me usually.
Yeah. And then what is your editing? Do you edit in Premiere, Final
Final
Cut?
Cut Pro. Yeah.
10?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. 10. One of the latest.
Yeah, yeah. That's what we use too.
Yeah.
It's fast.
It's so. Yeah.
I use a laptop and it works fine on my laptop.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. I just find it so much faster.
Yeah.
It's I know a lot of friends are all about Premiere. I'm like, it's great. I'm like, you look like you're touching a lot of keys to do the same thing I'm doing, but
Yeah.
I won't judge you. You say it's faster, you say it's
Yeah.
faster.
Exactly. Thumbnails. You have beautiful thumbnails.
Oh, thanks.
I really love your thumbnails. Like, when did you realize that taking good thumbnails was important? Because I know for me that was a big deal when I realized that.
On the first channel, I clearly realized that, and I remember doing those travel vlogs or travel videos and always struggling. I've always struggled with thumbnails. I arrive at the end, I edited the video, I finished shooting, I'm like, oh God, I forgot the thumbnail again.
Yeah, you gotta
And
like
thumbnail
pull a
is like
screenshot.
90% of your video.
I know, it really is.
It's 90% of the success of that video. So for example, yesterday I was at the airport. I'm like, I have a great thumbnail idea. What happened? I left the airport, I arrived home, and I had no thumbnail.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it's great. I'm going to put, my phone in selfie mode. I'm going to put it in the bucket at the airport TSA. I'm going to hold my camera and look inside, and I'm going to take a selfie while I'm at the TSA. It's a little bit tricky, but it can be done. And I never did it.
You just forgot?
Yeah, I forgot. I got caught up with the guy telling me, put your stuff down. And then I tried to take another selfie a little bit later at the end of the airport, but it wasn't my original idea.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, there's a plane in the background, there's me, there's a camera. That
It
could
works.
work.
Yeah, that's what has to happen a lot of times. I find myself, especially as a YouTuber, just kind of having to think on my feet a lot. There's usually a plan A, and then there's a plan B, and then sometimes you get to plan C, D, E,
Yeah.
you just have to kind of go with the flow sometimes and deal with the fact that you miss that opportunity, but not get hung up on like, oh man, like now I'm not going to do it because I didn't get that thing. It's like, no, just get creative. You can Photoshop something, and kind of make it work.
Yeah, you're touching on a very, very, very good point, which is you have to work with what you have and don't get hung up on that. I think that's a big one. I think I'm good at not getting hung up, maybe too good. But what I'm working very hard on right now is going through a list of shots, and being way more thorough in my approach to that. Meaning, okay, I need a shot of me walking here. I need a shot of just my shoes walking, for example. I need a shot of the camera on the table. A lot of small shots, small details that I keep forgetting every time. But to me, they add a lot in the stories.
Yeah.
It's just make it versus just looking at people speak. It's also much nicer to have like B-rolls, like a little bit of stuff explaining. And I'm sure you know it with
my friend Levi Allen, he has actually worked with Casey Neistat during one of his vlogs, and he said the biggest thing that he learned about that shoot was how Casey just shot for the edit so well. He honestly didn't shoot very much throughout the day, but when you put it all together, every single shot was very intentional, and he used every shot that he shot because he had the edit in his mind already, and so all he had to do is just execute those shots. He only needed 20-30 minutes of footage to make a 10-minute vlog, and there you go.
That's awesome.
That's the sign of a real pro who, he's made 300 vlogs or whatever, or more.
How many? What's your ratio like? Shoot versus export?
We have a different channel than that style. Connor McCaskill is my shooter editor. He's actually behind the computer over there. You met him earlier, and so I actually have a shooter full time.
Yeah,
which is a completely different.
That's awesome
thing, and I will say
I
will say it is really nice because I'm able to focus more on the content, and we're able to kind of bounce ideas back and forth, which is nice. And because we pretty much only review gear, the format of the show is kind of repeatable. So it's like, today we're talking about blank. Okay, here's my bullet points about the specs of this thing. Let's go get some examples, and then we'll just film a bunch of B-roll and call it a day.
That's great.
But as I'm experimenting with my personal channel, I'm trying to maybe get into vlogs and things like that. Do you find yourself feeling awkward when you're filming yourself in public by yourself? How do you push through that, like, hi, I'm talking to a camera and there's 100 people around me staring at me right now?
so much wish right now I could show you like footage I have from yesterday that I'm never gonna use, where it's just me looking at the camera, realizing there are people behind me looking at me, all around me, and I'm like, and then in my head again, it's just like shooting strangers in the street or approaching people or even a girl. What do you want? Do you want to make that vlog, or do you want to go home and cry because you didn't get it? No, I'm being serious. It's like, it's literally like that. I'm like, that guy doesn't care what I'm doing. He's on his phone. He's going to do his life. That girl's going to go home and have a good laugh saying, oh, I saw someone film himself in a train today. If
anything, they know what you're doing, because now it's so normal to see vloggers on the internet, probably like, oh, that's a real YouTuber. Oh, that's cool.
But I think the challenge when if you do it in public like that, I think the challenge is keeping the same energy level when you're in public with your voice. So I have the last video I dropped has 3 different intros. I had to choose one. One of them is me coming out of the plane, like literally out of the door, and saying good morning and what are we going to talk about. The energy, because I knew the steward was just behind and there were people in front of me, the energy, I can cut through, I can understand exactly in what mood I was and that I wasn't feeling at my most confident. Another one is like I'm on a ramp, it's moving and there are people everywhere, but I'm way more confident just because there are too many people. When there are too many, you just don't care anymore.
Yeah.
And the last one is just me almost by myself. And there the energy level is way higher. So I had to make a choice. And I think if you're able to get that high energy level wherever, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But the problem is you might get really loud.
Yeah. And people are like, what the heck, man?
Exactly.
Mirrorless cameras or DSLR cameras? Which one do you shoot on? I have a guess which one it is. I'm looking at your camera right behind you there. But
let's keep the suspense a little bit more.
Yeah,
it's
so
black.
It's
square.
Black. It's square.
I'm mirrorless right now. I switched about a year and a month ago, so I haven't touched a DSLR since. No, I'm kidding.
What were you shooting on, a Canon?
I was shooting before on Nikon D750 with the GH5 when I started the world tour. Yeah, but I didn't want to carry 2 camera bodies during that tour just because we're going for a year and it's not practical.
Yeah.
So I decided, okay, I have to do something and I have to get rid of one of the cameras. So I got rid of the D750 and for a full month in Taiwan and a little bit in the Philippines, I was shooting with the GH5. But the photos
on Micro Four Thirds are not good.
Yeah, it wasn't even as good as my D750, which was like 3 years or 4 years older at the time.
Isn't it strange?
Years.
I think the dynamic range on the Micro Four Thirds system is not as good. The sharpness is there. They can sometimes be really sharp. But like you said before, the depth of field is hard.
When I was editing, it felt I don't know. I was cringing.
It's like slightly better than a phone, but not really.
Yeah, I was a bit.
But the video is great.
Exactly, the video turns out well, which is cool. But I talked to a friend who was joining me in the Philippines. I'm like, bring me my Nikon. I absolutely need it back. I don't care if I have to carry it everywhere, like 3 times the weight. Bring me my 7200 and my 3514. I need it back. So I got it back. And then when we went to Thailand, I asked another friend, the Sony a7R III just came out, and I was like, oh, it's perfect. I can replace everything with just that.
Wow.
And then came a big dilemma because it ended up being the same cost as buying a 1DX Mark II with the set of lenses, but secondhand. What would you have done? Imagine you can get a Sony a7R III 16-35-2.8 and 72-200-2.8 brand new, or 1DX Mark II new and 16-35-2.8 and 70-200-2.8 secondhand.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a good question. I probably, because I am a Canon fan, I maybe would go that way, but I do see the value for you going with the Sony because of the lightness. It's a lot smaller and the video quality is better, easier to manage.
Yeah.
The 1DX is
I struggle a lot.
I owned a 1DC, which was the cinema version of the 1DX.
Oh.
Not the Mark II, but the original 1DX. And I went to Alaska with it. It was like -30 degrees, and I I really valued the size of it, the build.
Yeah.
And those cameras are tanks. So
Yeah, it always works.
there is something about that too. Like you could be in the middle of the jungle and get water spilled all over your camera, and if you had a 1DX, you know, no problem. You
Yeah.
know?
That was my biggest struggle, and I was like, oh god,
The
I
weight
don't know.
of it
but
is
it's
heavy.
so big, and then I realized it wouldn't fit in the backpack anyway. I mean, it would fit, but there would be just the body. So having
Yeah.
a 7200 plus a 1DX Mark II, I was like, oh, that's not possible.
Yeah, exactly.
So I went
you
for
went
the
to Sony.
Sony.
So you have the R3. The
Yeah,
A7
Sony R3, and I was super happy with it.
Yeah.
Like very, very happy.
You get stabilization on the sensor too, which you don't get on the
That was a
Canon.
big one also, and I was just thinking. I mean, Sony is ready for a very good run right
Yeah.
now. So I
The
was
color's
like,
great on it.
Yeah,
So,
color's great.
autofocus is great.
The lenses they're dropping are really good too now.
Way more megapixels, so when you're taking photos wide with your 16 to 35, you can crop in if you want.
Oh yeah, I do a lot. Yeah, a lot.
Gear addictions. That's something that you've talked about before. Besides the obvious gear, beside the gear doesn't matter approach, like what do you mean by that when you've described gear addiction? Or I've heard it said gas. Have you ever heard that? Gear acquisition syndrome.
Oh
I've got gas.
yeah.
I've heard people say that.
I think we all have it to a certain extent.
we all have gas.
Even yeah. Every kind.
Yeah.
Even if you're shooting with just vintage lenses, you might pretend, oh, I don't need the newest gear. No, you're looking for the old vintage lenses every
Yeah.
day. Like, is there a new one on eBay?
Mhm.
I think it's just part of the passion. I think it's just a tool, and it's always fun because each tool literally gives you a different result. That's why I always want to try something different just to see, you know? It's
Yeah.
like, oh, how is that going to perform? Or how is that going to shoot?
Like, how do you think somebody can get over a gear addiction, or is it even important to?
I don't think
get
it's
over it?
important to get over it. I think what you might want to think about is, what is your goal? You
Mhm.
know? Do you want to be a hobbyist and just collect items? Dude, go for it. Like, have fun, buy stuff. You know, if you don't have that, go for it. You know, if you have that, maybe that's a different discussion.
Yeah.
But if you're just trying to improve your photography and you keep buying gear, that's not going to do anything,
Yes.
in my opinion. Just if you already have good lenses and your photography still sucks, it's clearly not the gear.
Mhm.
And it's just whatever you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
So just try to see if you can do it differently, but maybe have a budget, yearly
Mhm.
budget that you allocate yourself. Maybe also your wife will hate you less. You know, it's like, hey, look, honey,
Yeah.
I just bought that new lens. How much was it? How much was your yoga retreat?
Yeah. That's right. I've really enjoyed my conversation with you. Is there anything that you want to bring up before we wrap this up that you'd want to share with somebody who's new to you or new to photography that would just be a good nugget for them to hear? We're looking for just kind of your overall philosophy, maybe something that you want to share with somebody who wants to do what you're doing.
That's a good
You
one.
can think about it. I mean,
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, let's put a jingle while Pierre thinks for now for 5 minutes. Joking. I think it's just a piece of advice, and it's just in general. People ask all the time, how did you become what you're doing, or how did you become good at that? And I just want to remind, if you feel you're not good at something, look at what you believe is good and try to understand what they did and try to do it, you know?
Mhm.
Even if it means copying, just copy that person, doesn't matter. And then don't publish it. Then do it a few times. Once you know how to do it, you do your own version of it.
Mhm.
You know, if you want to post it and be proud of it, go ahead. But just say, I was training to do X photographer or X photographer. This is the result. And from there, you'll really learn a lot of tips and tricks on how to get to those results that you love. But as long as you don't do that, you're not going to progress. You know, you might watch 1,000 tutorials, but if it's not if you don't funnel that energy into something like a laser beam, like I want to, just like I told you, I wanted to train to shoot surfers underwater going under a wave. That was my only goal for an hour and a half, like drowning in the water. I was like, I want to get those shots. He needs to be at the right position. I was struggling with all the technical aspects because when you shoot underwater, it's all hell's break loose, and you're focusing on particles before, then you try to go in manual, but you can't because you're already in the water. I mean, everything gets complicated, but if you put your mind to something and you really have a laser focus on what you're trying to learn that day, you make so much progress. So just do that.
That's amazing. That was a great bit of advice. If you could collaborate or work with anybody dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh, dead. Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna try to think.
Dead people. Okay.
Oh, I know. It's actually, I don't know how to explain it. It's not. He wouldn't be exactly an artist, but he's an adventurer. And he's done so many incredible things. I would love to collab with him, or just being able to capture part of his journey would be amazing to me. And his name is Mike Horn, and he did some incredible things, like going around the world on latitude 0, like literally on the equator, walking through the jungle, like the whole Amazonian forest with just a machete and himself over 3 months. He did so many things that really inspired me in the adventure world, that I would love to be able to capture a little bit of that.
He's French too, right?
He's Swiss.
French, okay.
Swiss, yeah.
When I look at your work, you're really well-rounded in a lot of different aspects. And now that I've talked to you about this, it seems like that's because you're challenging yourself, trying to learn different types of photography.
Yeah.
But how do you discipline yourself into just finding your thing, your voice, and staying disciplined with that?
If I'm honest, that's very difficult for me, just because my interests are very broad. And I was just talking about that with a friend who's an entrepreneur and has too many hobbies too. He's like, I'm interested in too many things. One day I want to be a musician, the next day I want to do that, and at the same time my business. I mean, that's a little bit problematic sometimes. So if you're multi-dimensional, don't beat yourself up. That's pretty cool, because otherwise you have too many choices. So the way I see it is more based around, in a way, I like being well-rounded, right? Because it gives me that ability to go anywhere and still create something that is good. I won't be as good as the guy who spent literally the past 2 years at the same wave, shooting every day. That's clearly not my goal either. But if I can get shots that I'm proud of there, and through YouTube also, what I really love is being able to share that journey of learning those. I feel like when I put my mind to something, that's what I'm really good at. If I'm telling you tomorrow I'm gonna take cold showers for the next 30 days, I will. Like, if I tell it to myself, I won't diverge from that, which is great when you want to learn a new skill. What about you? Do you struggle with that?
You're such a podcaster. I love it.
No, I think it's a discussion that's interesting.
Yeah, I struggle with taking on too many things at once and over-promising. I always want to impress people, so I try to be fast and do things that are really challenging. And often I can do that, but sometimes I'm late or procrastinate because it's so overwhelming. Yeah. Also, I have a son who's 1 year old, and I have a wife who stays at home all day, and she's a stay-at-home mom, and they need me, and I want to be with them. So the balance of work and being with them is that struggle is real for sure for me.
The editor, or at least shooter, someone helping me shoot, has been something in my mind, especially for that project. I almost got a friend to come with me, and I didn't know exactly how that project would turn out. So
I didn't, for video specifically.
Yeah, for shooting the videos, because exactly like you said, I could turn out so much more content, and I've seen myself being shot by other people. Just the way I speak and the way I edit removes so much from my mind. You're not trying to put your tripod somewhere or whatever. Literally your tripod is is just moving with you. You know, the person
Yeah.
is helping you.
And they're giving you ideas.
Exactly. You can bounce off the stuff. You're like, hey, what do you think if I go here? Oh no, the background's not great. Let's go there. It's great. And I wanted to do that. I think I will at one point. I haven't decided when. It also has to make financial sense.
You can find an intern.
Yeah. If anyone's interested.
Yeah. If anybody's interested, email Pierre at
Ask Pierre at pierrettlambert.com.
There you go. So yeah, with
It's
that,
not a fake address, by the way.
with that, how can people find you on social medias?
So on social medias, on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, you just type Pierre. Yeah, you just type Pierre T. Lambert. So PIERRETLAMBERT.
Perfect.
If you got it, kudos to you. Otherwise, it should self-populate. And then if you see a guy with a green suit, that's probably me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Pierre, it was a pleasure meeting you and having this discussion. Thanks for being on the Golden Hour podcast.
The pleasure's all mine. Thank you so much.
Thanks, man. I hope you enjoyed my interview with Pierre T. Lambert. If you want to follow his work, then check him out on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter at Pierre T. Lambert. And also check out his podcast. He actually has a really entertaining podcast, and he's interviewed people like Lizzie Pierce, who we actually interviewed with Chris Howe. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please consider subscribing to the channel. It means a lot to us. Also, comment below and let us know what kind of things stood out to you in our interview, anything that you think is interesting or different with my interview with Pierre. We post this podcast every single Tuesday, so make sure to tune in next week on the Polar Pro YouTube channel to see the next interview. Once again, I'm Dave Mays. This is the Golden Hour Podcast. See you next time.